but it's still, none of them are, that was a weird noise to get in my ear. That the recording is in process. But I think the most like important thing is like, you never know where your life's going to lead, how you're going to get into tech, but there's a position for everyone and anyone that wants to be in it. It's all about the integration that you can be put into it. Everybody has a unique skill set that they bring to the table. I know my contracting intel / entrepreneurial / whatever I did before this might not align perfectly with those that went to school for computer science and computer cognitive systems engineering and all that kind of stuff. But there is a place, and my place is business development, where I'm trying to match the technology with the work that we do so that we can make things better and create more for society that we live in. So once again, I appreciate the invite and I appreciate being here.
Thank you so much for coming, Raph. All right, how about Regina?
Hello, everyone. I'm Regina Miolan. I am a 10-year Army aviation veteran. Thanks, Raph, for the intro. I have over 10 years of IT experience. I've had the opportunity to explore different roles from business analysis to project and program management, organizational change management. Now I am currently an Agile coach and senior Scrum Master with Insight. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Marisa, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Marisa Bigelow. I'm a lead cognitive systems engineer at Mile 2. I've been in the field for about 6 years across lots of different domains, including healthcare, e-commerce, and defense intelligence. My role kind of sits at the intersection of people, technology, and work. So it's really thinking how we design better systems to suit the unique cognitive challenges that people face every day when dealing with technology. I have a very unique perspective coming from academics, but combining that with the more practical applied setting. So really happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Heather.
Hello, I'm Heather Taylor. I'm currently a front-end designer at Sparkbox. My role focuses on user interface design with a little bit of user experience and a little bit of front-end development mixed in. I have over 10 years of design experience that includes a broad mix of brand, visual, and web design. And I have 4 years of front-end web development experience. I love the space that intersects between design and development. Some of my favorite things include CSS, accessibility, animation, design systems, and of course, my Silky Terrier Shih Tzu sidekick, Ella.
Thank you so much, Heather. Tara, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tara Lee. I have over 10 years of IT experience, shifted roles a few times. So I started off in data management, where I managed a vendor software solution, and I managed all of the data transfers in and out of the software. We also served as a beta tester for this vendor. And then I also was responsible for the federal and state data submissions. I worked for a healthcare company for several years and managed this software. Then I enjoyed working with data so much that I got into a role of data analytics, where I was in the clinical data analytics area for about 4 years. We also produced a lot of analytic dashboards. I worked a lot with IT on data quality testing, also building out, like I said, decision support information such as dashboards. And then I really enjoy the data quality side of things, and currently work with Mile 2 in a quality assurance engineer role.
Thank you so much, Tara. Lindsay, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Lindsay Hewling. I am an associate software engineer with Mile 2. I have been in Dayton my whole life. Kind of came into this field out of nowhere. I was with or in early childhood education before this, before I made the switch. So happy that I did. I love this. I've been with Mile 2 for about 2 years, starting as an intern now as the full-time software engineer. I focus most of my efforts on UI development with kind of similar to Heather, loving the styling and the accessibility standards being maintained across the apps that we work on.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Milo, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here as well. My name is Milu France, and I am a software engineer at Circle of Health. I am originally from Peru, but currently living in Dayton, Ohio. My role focuses on building tools using React and TypeScript for the front end, and utilizing and building upon AWS resources for a serverless backend. An interesting fact about my career path is that I used to work as a graphic designer while pursuing my bachelor's in computer science. And I kind of love that I had that experience and skill set because it has helped me a lot in my current field, just kind of communicating and collaborating with other designers in the team. And also, I do feel like it gives me a different perspective on building software, which is awesome. I love creative data visualization. I love reading. I love learning new things. And I also love spending time with my almost 6-month-old baby called Delilah, who I can only hope one day is also going to have a career in tech.
Thank you so much, Milu. All right, well, there are our panelists. I'm going to go ahead and start us off with a fairly general question. What interested you to get into the role that you're in tech? Let's go ahead and start with Regina.
So I'm not a techie person. Like, code does not speak to me. I've tried, it's not my thing. And I accept that. However, I do have great soft skills. And what really drew me to the Scrum Master role is the utilization of those soft skills, the communication, the collaboration, building relationships. There's so many dynamics with being a Scrum Master that you can draw from, whether it's team building, business and IT relationships, team to team relationships, because different teams have different personalities. So that's what drew me, being able to be at the center of collaboration and communication and relationship and helping a team mature. So that's what drew me to it.
Excellent. Someone else with excellent essential and soft skills. Raph, how would you field this question?
Excellent has never been prefaced in anything that I've been able to do. So I'm shocked that that's how I've been intro to this comment. But I think the most important thing for me to get into tech is because you can change the world, right? You grow up, you want to have an impact. You pick your career fields based on the purpose that you can provide. That's something that's available in tech, right? Everything's leaning toward a different part of the industry where you can have an impact, you can have change. That's what the coolest part about Mile 2. I know I just looked at what I was supposed to say in the intro. I hit none of the talking points, sorry, Ren. But I was probably supposed to talk about some of the work that we previously have done. I've been able to fly, like I used to be an intel officer for F-16 pilots, right? A lot of dudes have passed away because of the training and the exertions that it takes to fly a jet. We're trying to fly F-16s with AI. And that's something we're working on at Mile 2. That's cool, that's purpose, that's something driven. That's one of the reasons why I like being in the industry of tech, is because I can have that difference and I can make that impact. Over.
I can appreciate your ending. Marisa, can you field that question as well?
So my background's kind of unique and a little bit different than other people since it's very academic in nature. So I got my master's in cognitive systems engineering from the Ohio State. I don't care too much about that, but I know some people get on it. My background really started from a lot of different places. I had some experiences interning with Microsoft as a software engineer at times. I've done a lot of design work in other areas for more UI But what ultimately led me towards cognitive systems and applying it specifically to software is really thinking about, how do people actually interact with technology? So there's definitely ideas of, blaming yourself when something goes wrong. You're like, oh yeah, like I'm the one who, misclicked it or something. And I just never felt that was an adequate enough explanation of what was happening. Like, I believe that it's the designer's role, the people in the system that are actually creating it, our responsibility to be purposeful and mindful of how we design technology to better suit the needs of our users. And to do that, we have to really understand our users. We have to understand the work and the environment that they're doing and really get in the weeds with that, because we are a part of their system since we're creating the things that they're using. So that was what really drew me to this area of like thinking from the psychology perspective, from all these integrated systems. It's such a fascinating place to be, especially talking with, people like from Raph's perspective and from Regina's, like being in the field and understanding where they're coming from makes a huge difference when we're actually creating things.
Heather, how would you go about
Yes.
answering that question?
My answer is I don't remember a time when I wasn't. So I'm in design, and I don't remember a time when I wasn't interested in design. I remember, all throughout my years, even in high school, I have always been involved in some kind of creative effort. And so what I do now is just an extension of that. And so it's always been part of me. I love the natural curiosity and the problems that, the natural curiosity of the user experience, and then the problem solving that you find within either doing code or figuring out how to make something functional for someone. It's just like that whole spectrum. I've always just been super interested in all of it.
Thank you so much, Heather. There is a question in the chat, but we're gonna grab that after we finish this question. Okay, Danielle? So with that, how about Milu?
Okay. So the question is like why I decided to pursue this career or kind of like this path, right? My current role. I will say the main thing is you get to build things, which is pretty much amazing, right? So you need to understand what needs to be done. You need to be able to analyze the problem, identify an effective solution, and then you get to implement it, which takes learning and it takes problem solving. And I feel like all those things are, I don't know, are fun because like your job is never the same. Like you're never, or I guess you could, but most of the time the problems you're going to face are going to be different. So you're always like, your brain is always going to be kind of finding ways to solve things, which is, I mean, at least I find it nice. And like Raph said, you get to build something that could make an impact. So it all depends on what project or what type of job you decide to pursue. But if it aligns with your values and the type of impact you want to make, you're in a very powerful position where you get to create something that could help others or could facilitate their life in a way. So yeah, I think that's my answer.
Thank you. Lindsay, what is your perspective on this?
Great. On coming into the field and kind of what led me here. I just love, so I was a big nerd in high school. I loved studying, I love reading, I love all of it. I didn't want to graduate because I just want to be in school forever. Like if I could, I've said forever, it kind of just high school, college was okay. If I could just get paid for being a student, like that was my goal. And I kind of jumped around different degrees. Like I said, I did early childhood, I did graphic design, I looked at paralegal, I started nursing school, and it's just like none of it really felt right, like in the career. Like I loved the school, but it didn't feel right career-wise for me and my family. And then when I hit this, I just realized like you don't stop learning. Like it's like every day there's something new that I want to look up or that I want to study on. There's always these different courses that I can take to get certificates on just different things. I can go back to school. There's different languages I can look into. And that was the appeal to me, is it pretty much fit exactly what I wanted with being a lifelong student. Like it made my little nerd heart happy.
Sounds fun. And best for last, Tara, what got you into this role?
My story is really interesting. My bachelor's degree is in social work, and I was a social worker, a clinical social worker for about 10 years. Towards the last few years of my 10 years as social worker, I was getting burned out, as many social workers do. And I switched into a role at the agency where they were wanting numbers. And I'm like, let me try and do that. So I taught myself. I knew I wanted to go back to college. I knew I wanted to go back to school, get a master's degree, do something different. Went back to school, taught myself Access database. Yes, I'm kind of old. We used Access back then. Taught myself Access, taught myself SQL, taught myself what I would say decent Excel skills at that time. Went back to school, got into IT, got a degree, a second degree, and got into the whole data management role. And like I said, did data management and software management for about 4 years, and then really loved the whole analytics behind everything of not just running the software, not just running the data, but why? Why did these numbers change? Why did this number change? What's going on here? It just drove me, the more you get into data, the more questions you have. And the more different disciplines in the company I was working with. I was working from everything from nurses to, and this was at a larger corporation in the IT field, but I was working with nurses, C-level suite people, to developers, to quality assurance people, just different disciplines, and realized that I had to provide a quality product or we were going to lose the trust of the business. So as I got into quality, I realized, everything has to be good quality. Everything has to be right. Data has to be right. Your software has to function properly, or you're going to lose trust and you're going to give misinformation. So my current role at Mile 2 as a quality assurance engineer, it's my job to make sure that the software is doing what we expect it to do. It's also my job to make sure that it makes sense. Sometimes when we design things, it looks good on paper, it looks good in the design, but then we start clicking through it and it doesn't make sense. It's not going well. So it's my job to step up and say, hey, this is feeling kind of weird. It's not flowing well. And it's also, I also look at I've worked in the Agile process for several years now, and I try to bring that experience, some of the things that I thought worked well, some of the things that I thought were barriers. I try to bring that experience and processes to project teams to say, hey, let's try something a little bit different. This isn't working. So really my journey's been kind of a long one, but it's been really good. And like many people said, with IT, there's so many different roles and you never stop learning, never. You'll never know it all. There's so many things to do. So it's always, every day is a challenge. It can be a challenge intellectually. So that's why I enjoy IT.
Thank you so much. Ashley, I think you have a question from chat.
That's right, Ren, we do have a question from chat. So Danielle, it's perfect timing, has asked, for those of you who have worn many tech field hats, which role was your favorite and why?
I know I would love to hear from Heather on this one.
I knew you were going to pick me. It's all good. So I guess you can see I started out as a graphic designer and mostly working in print design, which I know isn't in tech, but it really gave me a foundation for what I do now. And so I had about 10 years of working in design for various nonprofits, doing a lot of branding, a lot of marketing. And then I decided, so like I have like these two sides of myself. I have like all the design stuff I love, but I love code too. I love the technical aspect of things. And so I decided to go back to school. I have a certificate in web programming. And with that, I was fortunate enough to be brought on board at Sparkbacks as an apprentice. They have a full stack apprenticeship. I went through the apprenticeship and then they hired me as a developer. So then I got to work for 3 years as a developer. And during that time is when I discovered I really miss design. And so I was looking to bridge that gap a little bit. So I worked on starting to transition from just development into doing both. For quite a while, I was doing both design and development. And even then I found that my favorite thing is user interface design, which is I will usually work along someone who does user experience design. So somebody is doing the wireframes and the research, and then they'll hand them off to me. And we'll still work a little bit back and forth, but they'll hand them off to me and I'll be working in design tools such as Figma or Sketch or Adobe XD, and I'll be creating all those beautiful visual designs. And I just love creating those beautiful things. So I don't know, it's just the thing that it's my thing. So
Thank you so much. I
Sure.
know someone else with many hats and is wearing a hat who has been in a few different roles at Mile 2. Which one was your favorite and why? Raph?
I feel as if this is like guess who as she's doing it. Is the character that you're looking for, do they have a hat? In this case, she could go as the person wearing a male or have a beard. That would still be me as well on this call. And I think you could identify me as that as well. With all that being said, I came into Mile 2 with more of a business background. In the government, like I said, I was a government contracting officer. I had an unlimited warrant, which means that I could sign up to unlimited amounts and obligate the government funds for that. We had a contracting gap at Mile 2, whereas like understanding how to enter into government contracting, how to go through proposals, et cetera, et cetera. Like, do you want to be our contracting officer? I go, I quit that job, right? That's my job that was in the government. So they're like, what if we made you a product owner? And so that was actually my first role at Mile 2, but I still did a bunch of government. I wore the hat of reviewing a lot of the contracts. As a product owner, super cool gig, right? You get to interact with the customer, you get to interact with the team, you get to learn about the processes, you get to be involved in the design, you're pushing pace, as well as understanding the people behind it and what they need. You're getting them, you're removing roadblocks so that they can do the work that they need. Like if you're a designer or a developer, all you want to do is your job and you want to do it well. Product owner is supposed to eliminate that, as well as a Scrum Master. But they're trying to remove those roadblocks from you. So super cool gig. But in this position that I'm in now as business development, although it took me a while to get here and a little while to wrap my nugget around it, I feel like I could have my most impact. And I think that's the favorite job that I'm in right now because I get the opportunity to support the rest of the team, the entire company, by bringing in work that is impactful, that the tough problems that we want to solve, right? We're not looking forward to figuring out how to do better shopping at Kroger, right? We're trying to save people's lives. We're trying to shorten processes down to get the warfighter out there. We're trying to do all these super cool stuff as a company, and I get to be able to be selective of what that work is and have that impact. So that's why I enjoy the role that I'm currently in. And I'll always say that my favorite job is the job that I'm in. So nice try, Ren.
Thanks, Raph. Tara, you had mentioned that you had roles in both data analytics, but you're currently in QA.
Mhm.
So do you have a preference, or is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to make sure my manager's not on here. No, I'm kidding. He'll see it. Oh, he already knows. No, my passion is definitely data analytics. I really enjoy QA, but my passion is data analytics. I got a little burned out on it because at times, if anyone goes into data analytics, a lot of leaders or outside people who don't understand analytics confuse it with reporting, and there's a difference. So as an analyst, they bring you problems, which is really complex. It's a lot of them are very complex problems, especially if you work in a business such as healthcare or something like that. Hey, we need to know what's going on with this group of people, and the data is extremely complex. We're losing money here, we're gaining money there. What's going on? But then it can also turn into, well, we just need a report. We just need a list of people. We just need numbers. We just need this. And then you start kind of getting away from the analytics and the problem solving back to reporting. I've done a lot of that, but analytics is really exciting. It's very complicated. And when you train your mind to think that way, I think you can do a lot of things. So you can do quality work. So I have worked on front end. I work on front end now, but then you can start evaluating and analyzing the software. If you get into a project where they say, we have to, combine a lot of different data sets together and we have to populate it and push it out in the software, that's where I can step in and go back to my analytic hat and say, okay, what would we want to show them? Not just numbers, but what would we want to show a customer that is useful, not just interesting numbers or whatever. What is it that they would be useful for them that they could take action on? But I do like the quality assurance side of it too, because you do have to analyze, you do have to say, is this making sense? Is this working like it should? Are we really solving the problem that the client wanted us to solve? But I definitely encourage anyone who enjoys working with data to look into analytics. Just be cautious that they're going to want you to run a lot of reports and things like that. But if you get with a good analytics department that is a little bit different than that, then you'll find it a very challenging and rewarding role.
Thank you so much. There's been a lot of talk about interactions. So one of the questions I would like to ask is, what kind of collaborations do you have in your role or with other roles? And I know that Regina is like a ringleader because she is a Scrum master. I'd love to know about your collaborations.
Absolutely. From an Agile perspective, like the ultimate collaboration is PI planning, right? Where you get a bunch of teams together and figure out what the dependencies are, where they link together, the communication points, things of that nature. But I think from a Scrum Master perspective, to your point, you're in the middle of everything. So you're collaborating with the product owner to make sure that not only do we have a sprint goal and vision, but we have a product goal and vision. You're working with the business and kind of acting as a translator sometimes between the business and IT so they can understand each other's language. You collaborate with the team itself or outside teams that you might depend on to get work accomplished. So I enjoy that aspect of it, the different points of collaboration, but also the different points of communication that comes in with Agile as well, and identifying those gaps and putting things in place to help that along. So the collaboration is hot and heavy as a Scrum Master, but definitely within the Agile framework.
Thank you. The next person who I know has a very interesting collaboration method is Marisa. Could you please go into detail about that?
So one of the unique things at Mile 2 is kind of our foundation of our design process. We call it the design wheel. It's based in some research from cognitive systems engineering, specifically this one paper that combines multiple different ways to do design. From the innovator's perspective, someone who's trying to create new solutions, to the actual practitioner's perspective, someone who's actually in the field working on it, and of course, the designer's perspective, someone who's trying to connect the dots between everything. So our design process is super collaborative. And as a CSE on there, I try to help maintain that vision of collaboration and long-term sense of how are we actually getting this into the user's hands? How are we connecting it to their real environment, their real challenges and problems? So we do things every day trying to connect between different perspectives. As you can see from some of the people here, I mean, we have a diversity of different roles between QA, UX, UI design, more visual-based design. We have software engineers at all different levels, data management, and of course, our project leads and program managers. And everyone's perspective is super important to be able to bring to bear on a project at every step of the way. That's one thing that we really try to work towards breaking down. It's not a waterfall method. It's not clunky handoffs. We try our best to make sure everyone has a voice at every single step, even if they're not necessarily the ones leading during that stage as we're working on a particular artifact or deliverable, as we like to call them. So that's really our foundation here, at least at Mile 2. And my role I see is trying to help guide and think through, like, are we really taking into account lots of different perspectives? We're not losing anyone along the way, and we're still keeping the user in mind.
Thank you so much. To that, why don't I pass this on to Lindsay, who has to experience that particular design wheel?
Can find my mute. So I mean, just kind of expanding on what Marisa said with the collabs and all the teams together. Specifically the team I'm on now, I had just switched over projects. We have 2 to 3 collabs with the entire team, the project manager, our tech leads, all of the developers, the designers, the QA engineer, everyone on it 3 times a week it's like a 2-hour-long meeting. But it's really working with these designers. We talk about the features that the developers talk about the features that they want to bring to the table, and kind of how they want that to feel. And the designers work with us to really kind of map that out during those meetings, where we can be like, oh no, what about like, instead of this drop down, we switch it to like a multi-select or whatever. And we can have that live feedback and really have that part in it. And for what being able to guide what we think will best suit the needs for the features that the customer is looking for, just in terms of like the execution of it with the development.
Thank you so much for expanding on that. And, in addition to that, Tara gets the end of this. So why don't you describe that handoff?
Yeah, so Shelby, I'm sorry, not Shelby, I'm looking at the chat. So as Lindsay mentioned, the team it's a multidisciplinary team of development, design, QA. We often have our project lead, or some organizations, it would be a Scrum Master. So we work as a team to go through the designs, the entire team. And as a QA, I try to think about it and think about what the designer's recommending or maybe putting out there, and ask questions, probe some different thoughts, just give a little bit of a different perspective. And then as things get pushed to development and they start creating and developing, then they will often pass bits and pieces of the software to me that I then start testing. And one of the things that really helps is, a lot of times designs can be misinterpreted or interpreted differently. No one's wrong, but there's more than one way to be interpreted. So a lot of times I will look at something and think, that looks like that might be a bug, or maybe not. I'm not sure. So then that's when I'll reach out to the designer and the developer. We'll have a little chat about, well, I interpreted it this way and I interpreted it that way. And the designer will come in and say, oh my gosh, I can see both points of view. I could go either way on this, but I intended it for it to be this way. But if we do that, then you're right, this will happen. So then we talk through those things and work a lot together. So I work with the developers and designers a lot. Then I step back more as an overseer of the process. And so a lot of times I will help the project lead or Scrum Master kind of say, hey, what about this process? What about that process? Just as from a sprint and agile perspective, hey, I think we could do this a little bit differently. Or, hey, I raise a lot of the risks and alarm bells. My role is to evaluate risks. So a lot of times I'll go to our project lead or Scrum Master and say, I'm seeing a huge risk here. We've got this much amount of time. We've got a lot of challenges going on in the software. We've got a lot of bugs. We're running out of time. Or I see this risk. We haven't thought about this. I raise those to the project lead and say, hey, I think we as a team need to talk through these things just so that no one's blindsided. Or I'll reach out to the developers and say, hey, I'm reviewing this feature that was just released and we've got a lot of issues here. Do we need to go through them together? I think we might need to bring in design. So I kind of try to be that go-to and bridge the gap between processes and just the overall quality of the project team, the overall quality of the product that we're putting out.
Thank you. Heather, you come from Sparkbox here in Dayton.
Yes.
And I imagine that your process might be a little bit different in how you interact with your teams over there.
It
Also,
is.
coming from a commercial background.
Yeah, it is. So all the teams that I work on are pretty small. I usually work alongside of a project manager. I have usually 1 to 3 developers, depending on the particular project. Sometimes I will be the lone designer, and then sometimes I'll work with another designer. Usually one of us will be UX, so one of us will be focusing on UI. And so that is usually about the size of our team. They're pretty small. That's just been my experience. We do have other projects where the teams are a bit bigger, where there could be a team. The teams are all different. Not all teams have designers. Some teams, they've been brought in to work with a client and they're only doing development. And so they'll have a project manager and they'll have developers. But always on the teams that I work on, I work hand in hand with if I'm working with a UX, someone who focuses on UX, I will help them with research. I'll help them with user testing. I will be there helping run the user test or taking notes. I'll do research alongside them. We'll work together on the wireframes. She will be my sounding board when I'm designing and need some feedback. And then the project manager also will be a sounding board in that whole process. When it comes to development, depending on the project again. Sometimes if I know that the developers are all very back-end developers and I'm creating something that perhaps has some animation or some accessibility features that I really want to make sure that when I hand off the design files, I'm handing off more than just the visual aspects. Sometimes I will create code pins to be able to communicate exactly how a particular animation is to be implemented. So if there's any front end code, anything I can do to help that process along and help clarify the expectations, I'll do that. Developers, we also work hand in hand in that when they're working on a ticket, they will contact me, and before they will send that ticket to review and to be merged into the project code base, they'll have me look at it from a design perspective, and we'll sit down together and we'll look at it either they'll send me a link to a staging site where I can look at it, or a lot of times we'll just sit down together and take a look at it, and we'll do refinements in the code right then and there together. So that's kind of how I work with developers. And then I also work with a lot of clients. I will meet with clients, and I'll meet, there's one particular client right now, and I meet with the marketing director once a week for one-on-ones, and we talk about what initiatives they're doing. We just finished a landing page. It's kind of like a little microsite off of their regular.com page. They have this marketing initiative. They have this huge email campaign, and she already had a vision, and they were already using certain illustrations. And so we wanted to create a cohesiveness. And so we started meeting one-on-one. So the collaboration even extends outside of who you would normally think of working with. At Sparkbox, we're also working with clients side by side and collaborating.
Thank you so much. Milo, you have gotten to experience the Mile 2 collaboration, but also in your new position at your new company, you have a new experience of collaboration. Can you explain maybe how you feel about the differences? Or
Yeah, that's actually, I was thinking about that. I was like, she asked me this question, should I answer with my Mile 2 background or the new experience I'm having? So just so everybody knows, I started a new job 2-3 weeks ago. So it hasn't been too long. So I feel like I cannot really speak too much about the process yet. And it's also a startup. So they are working on the current processes, and they are changing pretty quickly. So as everybody else explained, Mile 2 has a really cool collaboration process where everybody, you have designers and you have engineers and QA, everybody kind of together brainstorming and coming up with solutions together, I love that process, and I definitely enjoyed working in that way. Now, at Circle of Health, right now we just hit a really big deadline, which was September 27th. So I came in kind of finishing up a lot of stuff. So I feel like I missed that a lot of the collaboration that happened with design. And the way I've interacted with design in these past 3 weeks, at least, it has been very similar to what Heather mentioned, kind of when you create a feature and you are kind of getting ready to merge that into the project code base. You do need some approval before you even set it up for review. You do have to communicate to design so they can express any concerns or kind of make any changes at this point. We don't get into meetings or anything like that. And I think part of it's because everything is really fast paced. We definitely have these big deadlines that we need to hit. So the way we do it right now, it's we record a video of the feature, and we send that to design. And based on that, they give us their feedback. And so far, collaboration with design has been mainly in that way. Most of the collaboration I've had so far is with other engineers. Our group has a very, or at least my specific team has, eight software engineers. So we all have expertise in different things, and there is a bunch of tools that we're all working on. So a lot of the collaboration that I've been experiencing these past 3 weeks has been with them, basically.
Thank you so much. Okay, next question. What is the most unexpected task or responsibility as part of your role? Raph, why don't you take this one first?
Everything. Like when you're at a startup, everything is different every single day. At least for me in my position. It's everything is there. Like everything is reactionary and proactive. Like we try to be as proactive as we can, but sometimes we're reactionary. I think the toughest part about it, especially at a startup, is identifying those lines of communication, right? How are you communicating what changes? How are you communicating the information? Whether it is as a product owner, like you receive a change from the customer, or the customer's super happy, or there's room for improvement. How do you communicate that to the team? And what impacts does that have on the team, right? So yeah, I think between it is every day is different and communication is tough.
Thank you so much. Regina, what would your be? What would your
I agree with everything that Raph communicated already. Yes, buddy. However, I have a completely different spin. One thing I was not prepared for as a Scrum Master was becoming like the team therapist in a way. I wasn't ready for that. Like I knew that Scrum Mastering definitely, the foundation is the soft skills, right? But once the team begins to trust you, they come to you for everything. And I don't think I was prepared for that initially. But now that's something that I enjoy, because that trust means that they're maturing and they're growing. So that's one thing I was not prepared for, but I've learned to definitely appreciate.
How about Marisa? Can you give us an answer to this?
So I only heard half of the question, but I can think through exactly some surprising aspects. And I'd say one thing, part of my background that I didn't mention was background in resilience engineering. So resilience means a lot of different things to different people, different contexts. My background really focuses on adapting to complex changes and surprising events. And most of it comes down to fundamental surprises when, you know, what you expect is entirely different than what actually occurs. So I'm being a little adaptive here since I only heard half the question, but I think that applies at least to some of my roles here, not just on the project teams of thinking how we can be less reactive and more proactive. And as Raph was saying, you know, establishing those communication lines early, keeping those up to date as often as possible, but also thinking organizationally. I do a lot thinking about, you know, how we can be more resilient in our processes, how we can be more aware of what we're doing across the organization. I mean, we have a lot of different projects and a lot of different ways too. Some that are more research and development style, others that are more enterprise. And it's very difficult, especially for our leadership, to maintain a good awareness of what's happening at, you know, the operational level between all these different projects, how we're actually doing our design process when we have so many different types of customers, different types of, you know, events that we're focusing on. So that's some, at least my background, and it's always a fun challenge to think through, you know, what can we throw in next to try and build up our own team, organizational, and individual resilience as a capability for our company.
Thank you so much. There was a question.
You muted yourself, Ren.
Yeah, I was using the space bar and I switched over to look at the question in the chat. Silly me. What part of a project is your favorite? Do you love, this is a multi question. What part of the project is your favorite? Do you love the early stages or prefer the deep breath as you deploy for the final time? Or maybe the heads down work in the middle? Let's go ahead and start with Heather.
Oh gosh, my favorite part of the project is in the very beginning. You're getting to meet the client, you're getting to learn like all about them, you're getting to learn about the initiative, you're getting to learn about, there's usually, I'll come on board or the team will come on board right after a discovery session. So you get to learn, like, discovery sessions are always so exciting for the client, and that they're able to like flesh out all the details of what they're looking for in this new project. So it's just really, it's a really cool time to, you know, jump in and to learn all the things and to be excited about all the possibilities of what you're going to be able to create with them. So that's, the beginning is definitely my favorite. Oh, then it depends if it's a really long project and it's been really, really stressful, like the end is pretty cool too. So I'll take both. Oh, you're muted again, Ren.
How about Lindsay?
I am kind of the opposite, more so than the beginning and the end. I like the middle. I like the heads down work. I like the beginning's cool because, like, I don't know, I feel like it goes a lot faster. Like, you're seeing a lot more stuff pop up because it's usually the simpler stuff just at that very beginning, and there's all that excitement. But the middle is where you're actually like seeing everything come to life and come together and tie in together. Usually the customer is pretty excited at this point because it's the same thing for them. They're seeing everything come together, and they're seeing these results of the things that they asked for. It's there. It's not just the design mock-up anymore. It's not just an idea. They're actually seeing it, and they're able to transform what they want or add on to what they want from that too. So the model that you're kind of, their idea and their model that you're basing your work off of kind of grows and shapes itself around what you're doing. And I just think that's a really interesting back and forth there.
Thank you so much. Regina, what are your thoughts on this?
Can you ask the question again? Because it was a two-part question. I think I only remember one part of the question.
What is your favorite part of the question? Do you like early stages? Do you like the end of the project? Or are you like a middle person, heads down?
I like different parts for different reasons. And I think we've all kind of hit on different parts, but in the beginning stages, I do like meeting with the client or the business and getting to know what they do and why they do it. I'm an agilist, so I like the why of things. Why are we doing this? Does it make sense? Is it really beneficial to the end user? The middle part, that's where we get down and dirty with Agile. So I'm always excited about that part. You know, we're having our refinement sessions and we're having our retrospectives. And with retrospectives comes a team's way to self-reflect to see how they can improve. And so by the end of the project, you can see that team maturity. You can see leadership breathing a little easier. You can see the business being very satisfied and happy with what's being produced. And they've been able to see these incremental builds sprint by sprint. So to see it come to fruition and all that hard work culminating to produce something tangible, I love that as well. And then I get to take my teams out to do fun stuff like escape rooms. So I just like to celebrate.
Who doesn't? And it's an awesome celebrate for anything, I think. Let's go with another question. What makes the work that you do meaningful? What does it make you feel like it's meaningful? Let's start with Tara.
Well, everything in IT, in my opinion, starts and ends with quality of what you produce. You could design the greatest software in the world, or other things I've done in the past. You could produce this awesome analytic find, but if it's incorrect, or if the software you put out is full of bugs and not user friendly, then it's not going to succeed. It's not going to make the customers happy. The end users are going to be very frustrated. So as a quality assurance engineer, I know that it's my job to make sure that the software is functioning correctly, that it's functioning the way that it was designed, the way that the team collaborated together, to make sure that as we go through the software, it's making sense, and that it's not going to frustrate and confuse our users. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have quality assurance and you produce a software tool to a customer and you have to explain to them how to use it, or they click and you say, oh no, that's not supposed to do that, it was supposed to do this, or it's full of bugs, they're going to start to lose trust, they're going to start to lose faith, they're going to get frustrated, and they'll take their business elsewhere eventually if they get frustrated enough, if you miss the mark enough. So and it's a reflection of the entire team, and the entire team successful when we put out a product that is of good quality. And you can sit down and meet with the client, and the client says, and you can just blow right through the software, and you don't have to walk them through step by step, and you don't have to explain, I'm sorry, this didn't work the way we thought it was going to, and we didn't check it before we met with you. And I would say everything starts and ends with quality, and really in most IT roles, most of what you do, if what you're doing isn't quality work, then and that goes down to data, everything. If it's not good quality, then it's pointless in producing it.
Thank you so much. Let's go with Marisa.
So the aspect for me that makes the work that we do, particularly at Mile 2, meaningful is basically, to harken back to what Raph said earlier, it makes a difference in people's lives. I've personally been working on that project he mentioned of integrating AI into air combat, and that's going to directly impact future airmen as they are flying and performing maneuvers. The hope is to eventually coordinate in a way that we're minimizing risk to airmen. They're not necessarily, we don't need as many manned aircraft out in the skies, but it's not to say that we're removing them from the system. Far from it. They become even more important in a different role in that, to be able to work alongside with algorithms. And there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to technology, especially AI and different machine learning algorithms, that they can do so much more than the operators think they can, that they're amazing and are going to solve the world's problems. That's not the case. People are the ones that have resilient capability to adapt to new situations, to fill the holes in design. And that's why we got to think through and try to predict and envision those futures where they're going to have challenges. So it's part of our responsibility as creators, as builders, as designers to do our best to fill in those gaps and make it as flexible for their use as possible. Because, I mean, as most people know, once you put into the world, I mean, it's out there. It becomes instantly outdated from what you thought it was going to do. Users love to break things and to push it beyond the limits. And that is honestly one of my favorite parts of the job, being surprised by what users come up with, because that is just new opportunities for pushing the bounds of our designs of our systems. So I find it super rewarding and just so impactful when you can see people light up when they're using it and realizing how much more they can do alongside some of the technology solutions that we create for their everyday work.
Thank you. Raph?
I think everybody touched on the external. I think the internal is kind of pretty cool too, about my enjoyment about the work that we do. Coming from the government, I'd show of hands if anybody's worked for the government before, maybe as a GS or active duty or anything. You're surrounded by sometimes B team players, one might say, right? Some people are there to collect paychecks. Some people are there because they're comfortable. It's not a bad thing. They found what's important in their life and they're happy with there. But here, internally at Mile 2 or internally at a company, people choose to work here, right? You get to work with 18 players every single day. You get to affect their lives every single day, right? If Marisa says, I hate this because, she's not bringing that to you because she wants to complain. She's bringing that to you because we want to get better as a team. And having that impact to work together to build something that's pretty cool and to internally have strife, right? I think, Regina, you said you worked in an aviation before. One of my favorite things about working in a fighter squadron was like rank comes off in a debrief, right? Like you can talk to each other in a respectable way, but to work things out. And, oh, by the way, that lieutenant or that senior airman can have just as much impact on that mission as the general, or in our case, the owner of a company. So I think if you do choose to work in the industry, be picky about where you work, right? Go to Glassdoor, talk to people that are at the industries, go figure out what these jobs are really like. I know this is step one to it, but ask about the climate at that company, right? Tara will tell you about the same thing as Ashley and Lindsay. Like, we hire people not just based on their skill sets, but based on what they bring to the team. What is the attitude that they bring to the team, and like the ability to have an impact on them to make them better. Nobody's here for a paycheck. Well, nobody's not here for not a paycheck. I don't know if I put enough knots in there, but I think everybody gets my understanding of what I'm trying to say. So just a different twist. I agree with everything on the external things, but internally, working in a company that has a vision, has passion, has good people to work around is why I come to work every day. Over.
Thank you so much. Can I get Heather?
Yeah, there's been some amazing replies to this question. And I just have to echo all of those. I also find in what I'm doing and the work that I create every day, when I'm able to improve the accessibility of a website, that's huge. Knowing that there's somebody, if we're working with a client who is going to launch a new site that perhaps was not created in such a way that someone who uses a screen reader, and perhaps it wasn't, the content was not accessible through that screen reader, or perhaps they visually on the page, if they're colorblind, and the way the information is being presented through color contrast, or perhaps there were charts or images where information was embedded inside of them. There's so many things that we can do to improve their experience and to make sure that they can access all of that content and have an equal experience to others. So just knowing that I can make somebody else's life easier just by doing my job well is pretty incredible. So that's definitely has a lot of meaning.
Lindsay, what makes you feel like your work is meaningful?
I was actually sitting here trying to like rack my brain for something someone hasn't said, because I mean, everyone's really kind of hit it. I mean, I was kind of banking on this accessibility stuff because that Heather stole from me. Because I mean, when we're doing the work for the government and these military contracts, I think that's awesome. And you know, we know that's making a difference and a lot of lives and can really benefit a lot of people. But to know that there's like that smaller scale, there's the people who need these different options with their screen readers, or if it's a mobility thing or something like that, who are going to be underrepresented and or not underrepresented, but like underserved with different websites and stuff. So just knowing that I can make a difference and I am making something that they can use and access and navigate through, just to echo what Heather said, to me is really, that's like a specific part of my work that I can be proud of. There's lots of things that I feel pride in. I feel a lot of pride on what I ship out and the company I come from and what we represent, like what Raph was saying. I can't say enough great things about Mile 2 and loving the environment there. But if I had to like pinpoint one specific thing, I would echo that accessibility stuff as being something that I really take pride in being able to like advocate for.
Thank you. It seems like the consensus is that you're making this difference in people's lives or in the customer's abilities to like provide their service. That there are a lot of strong points made there. Out of curiosity to our lovely 4 people that are still here, are there any questions that you have specifically for any of our panelists? You can unmute yourself if you would like.
I don't think I have any particular question, but I did find it very exciting to hear you guys talk about what you are working on and your passion for what you do in your day-to-day job. I think that's very important, your passion in your job.
Thank you. Well, it looks like we have hit the end of our questions, and we appreciate all of you coming today. Thank you so much for participating and answering our questions. Oh gosh, there's Delilah.
I have a little visitor.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Kidding. Great conversation.
Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to give you the rest of your night back. Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
evening. It's cool outside. At least here it is.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.